So let's take a deep dive into the Jannik Sinner service motion, and let's see what you can copy to help improve your serve. All right, please go out and film yourself serving so you can compare what you learn in this video to what you're doing with your own serve. First idea that I want you to notice, his racket, when he begins, is facing up at about 45 degrees. This is an indicator that he is using the proper Continental grip. So make sure that you adjust your grip as needed, knuckle and heel pad on panel number 2, which forces the racket face open, and that is indicative of using the proper Continental grip. The second idea, notice his weight is on his front foot. Now his weight is on his back foot, and then he brings the foot forward into a pinpoint stance. Now, there's a small little detail, which I did not know about Jannik until I started doing this analysis and just writing down my notes before I started making this video. I want you to watch his front foot. Watch how his toe is pointing in slightly, and then he's going to pivot on the heel and move the toe more across the baseline. Watch this. Look at him pivot on the heel, and he moves the toe away from the baseline. Now, most pinpoint stance pro players rotate the front foot, but what you see with them is they will pivot on the ball of their foot. They will not pivot on the heel. When you pivot on the ball of your foot, you'll move the heel closer to the baseline. Felix Auger-Aliassime, Ben Shelton, J.J. Wolf, these are players who have big serves and they move their heel closer to the baseline as a way to facilitate the body coil that is needed for a great pinpoint stance. But what's pretty cool is with Jannik, he pivots on the heel, which just moves the toe farther away from the baseline. Sure, he's a little bit farther away from the baseline, but it's not a big deal. Whether you choose the pivot on the ball of the foot or pivot on the heel, it is best to not keep your toe pointing inside the baseline, but to rotate the front foot. This allows you to coil. It also keeps this back foot at bay, and it doesn't allow it to come over. If you are someone currently, and maybe you're taking a lesson with a local pro and they keep mentioning how your foot is coming way over here, which opens up your body too early, limits the amount of power and spin you can create, then what I want you to do is turn your front foot. Pivot on the ball or on the heel, but doing so actually limits how far this back foot can come around. It allows your chest to point away from your target and you can get a ton of power. The third idea, let's look at his toss and specifically his toss height. What I like to use is a timer to decide or determine how high someone's toss is. I like to put the ball near the top of the head and then put a timer down and see how long it takes for them to contact the ball from this moment. Let me get rid of that line. There we go. All right, so let's see how long it takes for him to hit the ball. He's hitting the ball about 0.76 seconds. What I like to see with rec players and pros is that they contact somewhere between 0.6 and 0.9 seconds. So 0.76, that is right smack dab in the middle. That is actually the exact same toss timing as Ben Shelton. When you toss low like this, it actually gives you less time to swing. I mean, think about it. From right now, he only has 0.76 seconds to move his racket around to the ball. That's not very long. For instance, let's look at Sabalenka. Sabalenka gives herself 1.36 seconds because her toss goes up to the moon. That's why you'll see Sabalenka pause her racket and have to wait for the ball to come back down. And it can actually cause, problems for rec players and pro players alike. So toss slowly so that your ball doesn't go very high and you'll be forced to swing your racket very fast. The next idea, let's look where the tip of his racket is pointing when his racket is going up. So his racket is going from his right knee up to the trophy position, right above his head, like he's knocking off the birthday hat. But watch right here, the tip of the racket will go, right here. This is good. The tip of the racket is pointing the same direction as his chest. Again, film yourself serving. Do you do this? If you are, then great, because this gets you in position to use what is called the right to left motion, where the racket passes in over your head from right to left. Again, this is back view for right-handers. For lefties, it's left to right. And this gives you the proper throwing motion for hitting big-time serves. What you typically see with recreational players is they will go across their feet and then the tip of the racket points the same direction as the back. And that's what gets you into the waiter's tray, limiting how much power and spin you can put on the ball. So lift the racket up, keeping the tip of the racket pointing the same direction as your chest, and your ability to come in over your head, knocking off the birthday hat, hitting a huge serve will increase. Let's look at his leg drive timing next. This is really important. So when you hit a serve, it's in your best interest that you bend your knees and you explode up, but you cannot explode up at the wrong time. I want you to notice that, in fact, let's put a line right at the top of his hat, right there. I'm going to draw a line that will indicate how low his hat gets when he bends his knees. So notice he's above that yellow line, and now his hat goes down, the brim gets right to that yellow line, and then he comes back up again. So what we want to notice is, where is his racket when we see his hat appear above the yellow line? Let's check it out. We'll zoom in. When does his blue hat appear? There we go. What you'll notice is his hat appears before his racket hits the birthday hat off of his head. You know, you have been watching me for any amount of time. You know that I'm a big fan of players wearing a party hat, wearing a birthday hat on their head, and that the racket should pass in over the head, hitting the birthday hat. But what you want to do is explode your body up before you hit the party hat. What this does is it creates a very important relationship between the body going up and the racket going down, which forces the shoulder to stretch back. What you don't want is for the racket to drop all the way down behind you and then explode up. Now, most coaches call that the early racket drop, but I call it the late leg drive, because that's actually what's happening. When you're someone who drops the racket down and the racket is way behind you and then you explode up, right? That would be the time then when his hat goes above that yellow line. It doesn't allow for the racket to go opposite the body because the racket's already gone down before you ever go up. That limits the shoulder stretch and you don't get as much of a catapulting motion as you go up to hit the ball. Well, the fix for that is actually to lower the toss. What you'll notice, especially if you are someone who has been told that you have an early racket drop, is most likely your toss timing is over 1 second. If your toss timing is over 1 second, that means the ball goes so high in the air that it gives your racket too long to start going in over your head, hitting the birthday hat, and now the racket's way down here, and then it's finally time to explode up with your legs. But most people blame the racket, saying, oh, you got to keep the racket up here longer, don't let it drop, when really the toss is too high and the leg drive is late. So if you have an early racket drop, lower your toss. Don't toss so high. It'll force your legs to explode up earlier, and then you'll maximize the power that comes from the leg drive timing. All right, let's look at the next idea. Did you know that there is an incredibly important relationship between the racket and the tossing arm? They should go down together. Look at this. If I just draw a straight line from the racket to the left hand or to the tossing hand, as we go, look at this. As we continue on in the serve, look how they go down together. Is it possible to keep your tossing arm up for too long? Yes. That would mean that the tossing hand stays up as the racket drops. Is it possible for the tossing hand to go down too early? Of course, I see that all the time with recreational players. So film yourself serving and make sure that your tossing arm and the racket go down together to ensure that the tossing arm drops at the appropriate time. This is really important for making sure that you are using the proper throwing motion. And the proper throwing motion isn't just about the hitting arm. It is also about what the non-hitting arm does. I don't care if you're throwing a football, throwing a baseball, or hitting a tennis serve. All right, now he's going up to contact. I want you to look at his racket. His racket right now, strings are facing to the side, but what you'll notice if we go one frame earlier is his strings are pointing slightly down. Now, if you've watched some of my videos here on YouTube, what you'll see is drills that I will explain where I want you to hit the wrong side of the racket to hit the ball, to actually use the wrong face of the racket. And the reason for this is to accentuate and really to force you to use a supinated position, which then requires pronation to hit. So a lot of you know that you want the racket to kind of lead toward the ball with the edge, but oftentimes that is not extreme enough, and it doesn't help you to learn the positioning that you need. Most pro players go up to the ball. Look at Sinner. I'm sorry, well, we're doing Sinner here. Look at Felix. Look at Isner. Look at Federer. When they go up to serve, their strings are actually facing down. Taylor Fritz, a great example of this. So to learn this position, practice using the wrong side of the racket to hit the ball as a way of getting rid of your waiter's tray. And it's just a simple way of overemphasizing this idea. Now, of course, I don't want you to compete that way and play matches that way, but it'll teach your brain the feeling of being supinated with your forearm, forcing you to pronate. Now, let's look at his contact. This is important. Look how there is an angle between his arm and racket as he's going up to the ball. What you'll often notice, especially players who use a forehand grip, is the arm and racket are all in a straight line, where here's the shoulder, here's the elbow, here's the hand, and obviously the racket. You do not want your arm and racket in a straight line at contact, but you actually want the racket to the inside of the hand, which you could also say you want your hand to the outside of the ball. This creates the most amount of tension in the hand and arm. And I don't mean tension in a bad way, like you're squeezing tightly. It just means the proper way to pronate, and you get the most force into the ball. So check footage. Make sure your arm and racket are not in a straight line. This simply means that you need your hand to the outside of the ball to force the racket to be to the inside. Now, we talked about that supinated position, and he keeps turning the racket, and now look, his racket has gone from facing to the left to now facing to the right. You'll notice when his strings have faced all the way to the right as a right-hander, 180 degrees different than here, he is still having his hand higher than head level. Most recreational players do not point their strings off to the side until way down here. That is too slow a pronation. You want the pronation, which is the fastest way to move the racket through contact, to happen very quickly. So see if you can get your strings to face off to the side while your hand is still higher than your head. Now, if you need help pronating, then I want you to check out his elbow position right here. Notice his elbow is bent. You can call this the Sampras elbow, but Ben Shelton does this perfectly. If you struggle pronating, then try to bend your elbow after you hit the ball, but have your elbow point up. And you can see that. His elbow is pointing up, which basically forces his forearm to pronate. Strings are facing off to the side. I know for me, I'm not super flexible, so to force myself to pronate, I'm no pro tennis player, so I actually use this technique where I bend the elbow after I hit the ball to ensure that I am able to pronate. And then last, let's look where he's landing. He is landing inside the baseline. Why is that? Because he tossed forward into the court. You can see his back leg, often called the scorpion leg. They're using, pros use that for balance. Absolutely phenomenal service motion. Film yourself, see how many of these techniques you have in your own serve, and the more you have, the better your serve is going to be. Now, if you're tired of lugging around your old and outdated ball machine, then just make your tennis friends jealous and get the Proton ball machine by Hydrogen Sports. And right now you can get free shipping in the USA when you use my link. It's in the description. You'll find it in the first comment. You'll also see it on the screen at the end of this video. The Proton is fully programmable using its intuitive app. In fact, you control it using your smartphone or watch. It holds up to 100 balls and weighs less than 20 pounds. To see how truly amazing this ball machine is, and to get free shipping when you order one, be sure to use my link. So click right there to check out the Proton ball machine, and with that link, you're given a coupon code for free shipping. Go out and film yourself serving. Compare your serve to Sinner's. If you do, there's no doubt you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2minutetennis.net. You got this.